The master went to work as he did every morning, with complete joy. Every day, no matter what was happening in his world that needed his attention, he would always find time to create the things he most loved, his children. Little boys, little girls, by thousands upon thousands, millions perhaps, he would make with the clay by the life-giving river. If one went by the master's shop during the midday hours, they would probably hear the melodious sound of the master's laughter as he patted the child's belly, leaving a mark from his pierced hand. Right beside him was a large book filled with things that the master had written about what the child might do. Every so often he would look at the book with excitement, looking at the things he wrote in it long ago. Sometimes he would laugh and pat the child on the head. Other times he would look sullen, telling the clay child that he loved them so. When he finished with the last touches of his creation, he gently kissed their mouth, breathing into them a breath of life. The child would then disappear and enter the mother's womb, waiting for the day that they would be born. As soon as the child would disappear, he would start again on another child. It was on a particular sunny day in the spring, just after noon, when a man came to the door of the shop, accompanied by a young child. The man was expressionless. It seemed as though he did not want to be near the little shop, which could not be farther from the truth. In fact, there were days when he would sit at the doorstep of the shop and listen to the master talk to the children that he had made. Yet for the reason of the child next to him, he did not want to be there. For the child that stood next to him was an unexpected, which meant that the child came back into their world without being summoned by the master. The unexpected, as the children were called, grieved the inhabitants of the land, but it grieved the master most of all. It was because the world that he had created rejected them. In the master's world they had been called unwanted, not living, hated, inconvenient, rejected, and worse of all, not human. The child beside the man looked around, as if wondering why she was there. One could easily tell that she had been through a lot in her journey. Dried tears stained her face and white dress. Her eyes were still red.
"Sir?"
the man said. At first the master did not look. Silence. Before the man had time to say something, the master had looked at the little girl standing in his doorway. Tears began to fall. Great heaves erupted from the master's chest.
No, 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 no!
He sobbed, stumbling over to the little girl.
"Nina!" She cried during her arrival,
said the man.
"She wanted her mother."
The master sobbed even louder.
"She was burned,"
the man said.
"We made sure she was held during her arrival."
My child! My child!
The master cried.
You were supposed to live.
The master held Nina close to his heart. Back and forth he rocked Nina, unable to control his grief. This child would never get to experience the life that he planned. There was no going back, no joys of accomplishment in her life, no failure that she'd have to learn from, no struggle she'd have to overcome. She'd experience nothing but the world of the master. After a time, the master subdued his crying and stood up in front of Nina. He looked at her for a moment and then went to fetch a glass of water for the little girl. The master's heart was still grieved at the sight of Nina, but was at the same time overjoyed that he could welcome her into his arms. It was a difficult feeling to have, and he felt it often, billions of times in fact. One would think that he would have gotten used to the steady stream of the unexpected coming to his doorway, but each sight was a new dagger to the heart, a new fit of sobs that would erupt, and another day of fresh fallen tears for the life lost. When he came back to Nina, her escort had already left to attend to some other assignment. The master and Nina were alone, the Creator alone with his creation. The master handed her a cup of water, which she gratefully accepted. She took a big swig.
"Why were you crying?"
she inquired. The master smiled as he choked back a sob.
"Because,"
he said,
"I gave you life, a gentle spirit.
and my children took that away from you. You are so precious, and they destroyed what was most precious.
The master began to weep again, his heart breaking even more for this child. He wept that she would never get to cuddle up to her mommy or daddy. She would never get to go to school. She would never get married. She would never experience the exciting life that he had planned for her. Being only a child, Nina did not know how to react to the master's tears. As most children do, she just stared with her big eyes at the master, placing one of her small hands on his knee. He looked down at the little hand that she placed on his knee and gave a weak smile.
I had so many plans for you.
He lamented.
So many things I wanted you to experience.
Nina tilted her head.
Like what?
The master wiped his nose.
Come,
He said, getting up.
I'll show you.
The master and Nina walked out of the doorway to his little shop. Instead of seeing the street, as one would expect, they entered into a little room. The walls were covered with pictures taken by the owner of the house. There she sat on a red couch, watching a little girl take her first steps. She wobbled and fell, only to be caught by her mother. She gave a short laugh.
Good job, Nina,
She said.
Good job.
Nina.
The child said happily. Nina looked at the master, who was smiling at the little scene.
Is that me?
She asked.
Yes.
The master said, kneeling down.
It would have taken you a little longer because of some weakness you had developed in your first few months. But with hard work and prayers of many, you would have made and conquered your challenge.
They watched a little longer as baby Nina took her first steps. The master watched as tears began to develop in his eyes, as he knew that she would never experience her first steps.
Let's go somewhere else,
Suggested the master. The two took a step forward as the room dissolved into the kitchen, where 9-year-old Nina was pleading with her mother. She wanted to start taking the flute, which was a commitment to practice.
Please, Mom.
Pleaded Nina.
I promise that I'll practice really hard. Oh, honey,
Said her mother.
the flute takes a lot of time. What about soccer? I don't know.
Nina answered.
Do you know someone who plays it?
Her mother inquired.
No.
She said.
I just really want to play.
Silence.
Please.
She pleaded with her big puppy-like eyes. Her mother thought for a minute.
If you promise to practice.
Yes!
Nina exclaimed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right.
Her mother said, hugging her.
Now, you promised to practice.
I will.
Nina promised. Nina turned to the master.
I get to play the flute.
Yes.
The master said.
You were to be a great flutist, accepted into some of the greatest music schools in the United States.
The room faded into darkness, and a new scene replaced it. It was a yard of some sort. Chairs were set up in rows of 10, filled with people. 12-year-old Nina followed her mother to the altar as maid of honor. Nina was smiling from ear to ear, proud that she was finally going to have a dad. The scene once again shifted to a bedroom where 16-year-old Nina was crying on the shoulder of her stepfather.
It's okay.
He said.
I feel so stupid.
Nina sobbed.
I hate him.
I know.
Her stepdad comforted.
I know. But you know what?
What?
You'll have other boyfriends.
He stated.
You're going to find someone so perfect, so honorable, that you're going to look back and laugh.
You think so?
She said.
I know so.
He stated.
Any man who only wants your body doesn't deserve your time.
Nina turned to the master.
He seems nice.
She said.
He is.
The master said.
He would have married your mom even though he wasn't your father. You would have had a little brother.
Slowly the scene changed to a small church where a blushing Nina stood before her future groom. He was tall, handsome, and everything that she could have wanted in a man. She smiled with a big smile as she said the word, I do.
Who's that?
Nina asked, pointing to the groom.
That would have been your husband,
The master said.
William Kane. You would have had 4 children, each of them with a specific calling on their lives.
Why won't he be my husband?
She asked.
Well, because you're with me.
The master said.
Oh,
She said. She thought a little.
will he be someone's husband?
The master looked down.
No.
he said.
I created someone for everyone, and he's not going to marry. He'll try, but it will never work out. He will never have children.
What will my children look like?
She asked. With each name that the master spoke, they were transported to a specific event in her children's life. The master tried hard to compose himself, but found himself overcome with grief over a creation lost.
There's Samantha,
the master said.
She would have been inspired by her second-grade teacher and end up becoming an elementary school teacher. A great inspiration to many. There's hope,
he continued.
She would have become rebellious in her teenage years and experiment with drugs, alcohol, as well as an overwhelming depression. Her deliverance would spur her on to work with teenage girls, get back on the right track. David will follow in your path as a musician. His skill on the guitar, piano, and trumpet will open himself into the entertainment industry. Jacqueline will be unsure what she wants to do with her life for most of her life. She would have moved from job to job, looking for something she wanted to do. She would have eventually found happiness, but it would come later in life.
Why can't I go back?
Nina asked.
Why can't I do it again? Why can't I be born again?
The master started to cry.
You can't.
He sobbed.
It doesn't work like that.
I hate her,
Nina declared.
No,
said the master.
Your mommy did what she thought was right for her. She believed the lie of the world that said you weren't alive, and now she's dealing with your death.
With a wave of his hand, the two flew to a small room where a woman sat curled up in her bed. She looked around and started to cry. Nina looked and started to walk toward her. At first, it was out of a young child's curiosity, but then turned into a wanting to be near her mommy. She placed her hand on her mommy. Her mom lifted up her head as if to look at Nina and started to cry.
Don't cry, Mommy,
she said.
I'm all right. I'm with Jesus. He'll take real good care of me. I can't wait to finally get to meet you.
She laid a kiss on her mother's forehead.
I forgive you.
When she turned around, the master was beaming. He felt such joy that his creation was able to forgive her mother for taking her life. He slowly put his hand on her back, guiding her back to the little shop where their journey began.
Where am I going to live?
She asked. The master smiled.
You don't have to worry about that,
he said.
You've come home. You will live here with me as my child. I will be your father, and you will be my daughter, forever. In the absence of your human family, I will be your family. In the love that you were denied, I will pour out my love on you. I love you so much.
I love you too,
she said, hugging the master.
I love you so much.